Constitution voter.
Hey, ACLU.org, I'm a Constitution voter.
Thank you.
I'm a Constitution voter.
I'm a Constitution voter. I'm a Constitution voter.
I'm a Constitution voter.
I'm a Constitution voter. I'm a Constitution voter.
Now, our guest speaker today is Edwin C. Yonka, the Director of Communications and Public Policy for the American Civil Liberties Union. Mr. Yonka is the primary spokesperson for the most prominent civil rights and civil liberties advocacy organization in the state of Illinois, an organization with more than 23,000 members. On behalf of the ACLU of Illinois, Yonka appears regularly on television and radio programs in Illinois and throughout the nation to speak out on a myriad of issues ranging from racial profiling and the inequities of the criminal justice system to matters relating to religious liberty and internet privacy. Yonka also is widely cited in newspapers and publications on legal and legislative matters related to the ACLU of Illinois' priorities. Please help me welcome Edwin Yonka.
Well, thank you all. I'm not sure I need this in this room. No, I'm okay. You know, one of the things about this election, and you'll hear a lot about this election in the next 26 days, but one of the things you'll often hear is that young people don't vote. And here's the sad truth. There are people in places of power who are depending upon you not voting. They are depending that you won't care enough to turn out and speak out about your future. And you'll hear all kinds of messages in the next several days about how, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Or, boy, can anybody really make a difference? Or, my favorite one, well, Illinois is already decided, so why should we speak out? Do you know the one sure way to make sure that your voice is never heard on any public policy matter? And that's never raise it. You have an obligation to speak out. Because this is, as has often been said, and sometimes it feels like it's overused. But let me just say this. This is the most important election of my lifetime. It is an election in which we are replacing an administration that has treated the Constitution like a first draft that was just waiting for George Bush and Dick Cheney to come along and rewrite it. And frankly, we didn't need their help. So I want to urge you all to go and vote. And for whichever candidate you choose, please do. But when you go to vote, I want you to think for just a moment about that Constitution and about that document. And I want you to think about the things that the next president needs to do to correct the injustices, the inequities, and the mess, frankly, that this administration has created for us. As some of you may know, the ACLU has begun a project across the nation called I'm a Constitution Voter. If you go to www.aclu.org, you can sign a petition, you can upload your photo, but those petitions are being taken to the candidates at the last debate, in which millions of your fellow citizens from across the country are going to join together in a commitment to a common agenda designed to restore constitutional rights and to restore the balances and the checks that are embodied in our Constitution in the next administration. Now, some of this will take a long time. For example, we'd like the government to end warrantless wiretapping. We'd like the government to stop the Real ID, the National ID Act. We'd like the government to end discrimination based on sexual orientation or sexual identity. We'd like for the government to stop the funding of abstinence-only programs that frankly teach young people the wrong things about sexual education. We have a whole host of things that will take a very long time for us to fix. But there are three things. There are three things that the next president can do on the first day with a stroke of a pen. The new president can, for example, on the very first day, on the hour that he takes office, can end the practice of extraordinary rendition. whereby people are swept up in one country and shipped off to another country where they know, where the U.S. government knows that they will be subjected to torture, where they will be questioned and humiliated in ways that we wouldn't permit, but is allowed and permitted because we send them to some country and then turn a blind eye as though we didn't know. That practice can end on day one. The second thing we can do is for our own people, for CIA operatives and others, we can bar the use of any kind of torture or so-called extraordinary techniques for questioning. That can be done again on day one. America is a country which is always ascribed to the concepts of the Geneva Convention until this administration came along. Until we began to use words like quaint and outdated for notions like that we should treat people humanely and not torture them and subject them to waterboarding and other kinds of activities. That's something that the new president, again, can do on day one. And there's one final thing that need not wait until more than a minute after noon on that day when a new president comes into office, and that is that the next president should end the shame and the stain on this country and close the detention center at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba on the very first day. All around the world, we ask people to join with us in efforts, or want people to join with us in efforts, whether it's to combat the spread of nuclear weapons or genocide in Africa. And we have no credibility in talking about human rights because of what's happened at that base at Guantanamo. It needs to end. It needs to end now. We need to restore habeas corpus and the rights of those people who have been held at Guantanamo to have their cases reviewed. All this can happen, no matter which of the major party candidates are elected, if enough Americans let them know that these are critically important. You know, one of the sad things for me is that probably unlike you, I'm like a moth to the flame, and I've actually sat and watched all 3 hours of presidential debates and the hour and a half, I see someone else raise their hand, of the vice presidential debate, and that was a beauty. Well, what's amazing is that in 180 minutes of discussions between the presidential candidates, these very issues of the power of the presidency have yet to come up. They've talked about the economy, we've talked about lipstick, we've talked about tactics, we've talked about everything else, but we haven't talked about the important and critical role that our Constitution plays. It is important for all of you to speak out and to speak to those leaders and to talk about how critically important this is. But most of all, as today is all about, what is most important is that you go and vote. Thank you all very much.